So, thanks a lot for tuning in today. We're going to talk about the residential real estate outlook for the remainder of 2020. And what we're going to go through is we're going to give you a quick overview on the technology response from both the legal and the real estate community. We're going to go through this quickly, the whole presentation, maybe 15 minutes. To understand where we're going, we need to do a quick analysis on past data, which I'm going to do for you today, and then also project where numbers are going to go. So when the quarantine hit, it turned everything upside down, real estate especially. There was just pending transactions in particular. When the governor's order hit, a lot of people were terrified that their deals weren't going to close, they weren't going to be able to move. All kinds of situations arose. I had a situation where the executor was selling a house, and she was in Oregon, and the property's here in Wheatfield. Very nice house, sold right away, but full of personal property, all tagged for an estate sale that was no longer allowed. So we had to get really creative getting everything out of that house, and there was a variety of situations like that occurred. Um, there was a group of really committed attorneys who absolutely stood on their heads and worked a lot of additional hours to figure out a way to keep the process moving with all the title companies, real estate companies, appraisers, secondary market regulations, local statutes. And fortunately, everything has been closing. There hasn't been anything that has not closed for any reason that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And essentially what's done is to file, they need to make an appointment versus having that room full of people. It's actually a lot more convenient to close this way. So much more has gone electronic because people have been forced to do that. What happened in the real estate community, there was just this absolute flood of training that came at the national, state, and local level for real estate people, how to actually start showing houses virtually without actually walking through them, how to assess a property with a seller without actually being able to walk through it. And it's been amazing. I mean, innovation is always like cutting edge in real estate, but it's been a turbo boost. I mean, it's amazing the things you can do now. I'm, I'm just fascinated to see where things go because there's so many time-saving things that we've identified that become more commonplace for buyers and sellers. I think as we educate the public, the way of looking at a house is really going to change. I don't think there's going to be any replacement for actually walking through it before, you're fully committed. But there's a lot of time savers that, that we've put into place, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that. You can actually sell your house with nobody coming in, and we've done that. Our teams, I think we've had maybe 4 or 5 sales in the last few weeks, and several of them, I think 3 or 4 have been over asking price. So virtual meetings with clients, Zoom obviously has gotten really popular. There are so many other platforms as well that can be used, and there's WhatsApp, there's Google Meets, there's also FaceTime. Showings are happening virtually. Open houses are happening virtually. Last weekend for a new listing in Kenmore, we had virtual open houses, 3 of them. We had 27 people attend. We ended up with 5 offers, and it sold 20,000 over asking price. My narrative, I'll tell you, I think values are going up, but we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. There's some other great products. There's one called Matterport that I've been using, and it's just like walking into the house. You can direct it yourself. One of the advantages that's pretty amazing is you can click on these different camera icons, and they actually tell you what brand of furnace, how old it is, if it does like infrared screens, to see if there's any moisture at all in a dwelling, basement, attic. It's fabulous. The other thing that happened, I mean, this has been fairly common, I'd say, but there's a lot more people that have learned about electronic signature. And one of the things I've realized that my role, I think as a realtor, you're always an educator in so many ways. You need to be focusing on that so people have a good experience. But teaching people, how to use Zoom, how to use electronic signature, especially folks that feel technology, are technologically challenged, it's actually pretty easy to use this stuff. So, and we love to help people with it. Um, so to get into the data, this is what's been going on nationally. This is data from the National Association of Realtors that shows you the trend line as far as number of sales, and it's kind of probably smaller print here. The area at the beginning of the graph is the year 2000. Essentially, it goes back 20 years. And you see a tremendous spike there. That high point is right before the financial crisis in 2008. There's also another low point you see a little farther along, which is actually 2011 after where there was a bit of a loss there as well. So this is the national trend. So we've been really on an upswing over the last a good 10 years or so. It's been on the rise. But locally, let's take a look at what's happened. This is going back over the same time period. This is the median home price in Western New York. I'd like to direct you especially to 2008 when the financial crisis hit. I remember very well people thinking that values were going to go down. They actually went up that year in Western New York. So it's been so inexpensive here for like a really long time that our value really, I think, is still catching up to the rest of the country. This is another National Association of Realtors prediction, which probably I would think is going to be pretty accurate. This is from Lawrence Yun. He is chief economist of the National Association of Realtors. I love listening to him. He's just so on point in terms of, identifying things. And I've even gone back and looked at old presentation of his, old graphs. He nails it, absolutely nails it. So you can see home sales, this year that's number of units, how many sales are actually going to take place. That's going to be down. And I think that's going to be the trend here in Western New York too. I don't think as many houses are going to sell. I do have a prediction for value at the end, and I'll give you my reasons why for that. And then you see following up on 2021, there's going to be a tremendous uptick in activity. So I think what's going to happen is for the remainder of this year, I think there's a bunch of people that came into the market with a certain perception of how it was going to go, and maybe things have changed, and maybe those people will drop out, not do anything. There's going to be, unfortunately, there'll be job loss. There's a variety of circumstance that's going to be this period of stabilization, quote, normal to the new normal. I know people are tired of hearing that phrase, and then next year, I think once this whole thing has, not even like in terms of COVID-19 or practices throughout the country or the election or anything, just in terms of home buying, I think what's going to happen is a lot of people on the sidelines this year are going to step up next year. I totally agree with the projection that's here. Here's a really interesting study that they did, a survey of home price during the pandemic. This is from the National Association. They did a huge summary or survey by both phone call and email, and they wanted to ask, will values go down, during the pandemic? And the reality of what we find here is that the majority of buyers, this is on the buy side right here, is do not perceive that there will be any loss in value. So it's, and the way the numbers kind of play out here, this is the 50% line. So this is people that do not think that values will go down. There is always this group here, this 10% that's looking to get a deal no matter what. trying to justify it. So it's something that is, important to keep in mind, that, buyer perception, if you're thinking of selling, it just hasn't changed. I mean, the majority of people, this is our reality usually. I mean, it's no question. So the stats for the last few weeks, I was trying to figure out what to do for this, that I could actually give you something to hang on to that would really show you something. And it dawned on me to try to look at how many sales have happened each week since we got really kind of deep into quarantine, which to me was around April the 5th. It gave us, the real estate community, it gave us like 2 or 3 weeks to learn how to use the new tools. Tools would actually have been out there for a long time. I saw a Matterport at the National Convention about 3 or 4 years ago, and I just thought this is going to be amazing. Now, in some areas in California, it's old hat. You have to have it or you're not going to get a listing. In Western New York here, we'll see what happens. I've been using it. My sellers love it. Home buyers love it. I can sell a house without anybody walking in it. Even after the quarantine's lifted, maybe there's some, we do a lot of work with older adults. They don't want anybody in their house anyways, and I don't blame them. These tools and techniques that we're using now can certainly help us, in that same circumstance, and also to protect people so they don't have a lot of people coming in their house. But anyways, so these are the stats. These are the total number of sales for each of these weeks. These are new contracts. These are, people that bought a house during the quarantine time period. So next slide here, you see that April 5th through May 9th, that totals out at 545 sales. So during that same time period, how many houses actually got put up for sale? Just a little bit over 600. And at the time, what this tells me is that in terms of the inventory that's out there, the existing inventory is being sold in under a month. And that is, last year's average was, I believe it was 48 days on the market. So that's 18 days quicker during the quarantine that houses are selling. So to me, that, and the other thing I'm experiencing is every single house that we're putting up for sale, we're getting this mammoth amount of interest right off the bat. So it's, in terms of can you sell a house, there's no question. In terms of buying a house, you have to be very well prepared, you have to be well qualified, and you have to be positioned, by your real estate person to, be aggressive in your purchase. So the bottom line is inventory is disappearing even more rapidly than before. It's good news for some, not good news for others. But in terms of, it does lead to my prediction for Western New York for the rest of 2020 is going to be a 6% increase in value. And what? There's a quarantine, there's COVID-19. It doesn't matter. Can I direct you back to the graph that we looked at before? This is Western New York during the financial crisis. Spotlight, look right at 2007, 2008. In that area, values were going up. It doesn't matter what's happening in the rest of the country. It's really affordable in Western New York. And even though at times it doesn't seem like it, it still is compared to where rents are going. So again, let's pull up the NAR's prediction for the nation. Said next year is going to be an additional 10 to 15% number of sales. So I don't know. I see our market being really strong. In terms of sales happening, it's not going to slow down. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. If we can help you out with anything, give us a call. Questions you have, things you're wondering about doing. Does it make sense to put in new windows? Email me. Even if you're not going to sell, we'll help you out. Just let us know. All right. Well, thanks for watching.